Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Leadership with Heart podcast. Today, I am thrilled to have Shawn Hanks on, and it is because he is, I know a leader with heart because I guess what? I got referred to him by somebody I deeply adore and trust,
Oh,
and
wow.
he's someone that has a huge heart. And so I know that I've seen you from a distance, and I've seen the kind of people that he has on his team,
Hmm.
and that's usually a reflection of the leader. So, welcome, Shawn.
Thank you. Those are kind words, and our mutual friend Brian saying nice things about me means the world to me. So double win for me. Thank you.
Don't they say that like this whole idea of, the character, like who you say are is really based upon what people say about you when you're not in the room?
That sounds right. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, what people whisper about you when you leave the room is what they really think about you, right? Because they don't have any motive at that point. They're just speaking truth.
I think so. It's not what we say about ourselves. We can fluff ourselves up all day. It's the
Oh yeah,
perceptions.
I can be the biggest liar to myself. I mean, you tell yourself stuff that's not true all the time. Not on purpose. It's just human nature.
So tell everybody kind of what you're up to. Like, where are you in your leadership journey? What are you up to? What kind of work are you into? Just for those, because I bring on so many different types of people in different industries here.
Sure.
So let's just level set that.
Yeah, Heather, you and I are in the same industry in some ways, I mean, adjacent to each other. You're on the speaking side. I run Premier Speakers Bureau. We're a speakers agency, represent yourself and so many other amazing speakers who just have remarkable ideas to present to the world. Our job is I have nine agents, Premier, nine agents. Their job all day, every day is to help event managers, event planners find that best speaker, put them on the stage. We have five on the logistics team. Their job all day, every day is to get the speaker on a plane and to the car service and the flight's delayed, all of that stuff. That is just the nature of traveling around the world to speak. And we've got a great team. We have a team of 23 people. And we're just blessed in Nashville, Tennessee, which is a fun, hopping city to be in. But I've been here for almost 25 years. Took over as president, running the day to day 15 years ago, and then took over the company completely in 2015. So going on almost 10 years doing the rough math. But that's been a fun journey, a learning experience for me. I started at Premier as an employee, a teammate, and then slowly assumed leadership over time. So even that's a unique journey, starting amongst peers and then ultimately leading the company. You certainly learn good and bad things along the way, what to do, what not to do, those types of things. But life is good. Married with four kids, college senior, college sophomore, high school senior, high school sophomore. That's a much bigger leadership challenge, as you know, because you and I have similar aged, not kids, adults, whatever they are. But yeah, lead a company, Premier, awesome people, blessed to be here. And then Heather and I lead a family. My wife Heather and I lead a family of four.
I love that. I have, for some reason lately, have been associated with people who are like their wives are Heather. So they'll be talking and they'll be like, and Heather. And I'm like, and yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes. What would you like?
right.
They're talking about their wives. So
I am self-conscious about it still, and I shouldn't be. But my director of advance, who's been at Premier for 12, 13 years, it still feels, I'll say like, oh, Heather and I went to dinner, and I still caveat, no, like my wife Heather, and everyone in the building is like, we know Shawn. Like, you don't think if it was our first month here, it would be a little weird. Like, are you going to dinner with Heather? Like, what's going on? But I can't help myself. I just like my wife Heather, and collective eye roll. We know. Like we're 10 years into this. Yeah.
oh, that's hilarious. Well, I'm curious to know kind of where, if you moved up the ranks. Well, there's a couple things. Like, where did you see the biggest challenges? And then the second thing would just be, what do you do? What have you done to grow in your leadership prowess? Because for you to go up and then lead the people that you were colleagues with. So, what were the challenges? And then what would you do to kind of just ramp up your leadership abilities?
Yeah, great questions. Answer that in reverse. I am such a nerd. I'm just a geek. I'm proud of it. I'm not ashamed of it. I love to read. So I even before, I feel like God or the universe just puts things in your path before you need them to equip you. I've always just been interested and fascinated by reading leadership content, books. So, before I was in an official role here, yeah, you're always in some amount of leadership wherever you are in life because sometimes you're leading from the middle, sometimes you're leading from the front. So I had always consumed leadership content and books. if I'm honest though, and I think a lot of people can resonate with this, I had a lot of principles in my head that I knew the right thing to say. So if someone had asked me a question about leadership, I would have known to say, you got to get the right people in the right seats on the bus, right? Like that's an old cliche thing to say.
Hmm.
I didn't, I think I just knew I was supposed to say that. But, once you don't do that correctly, once you're in a leadership position and you make some bad decisions, or you just put someone in a position they're not ready for or equipped for, you wake up and you go, "Oh no, like that's on me. That's not their failure. It results in their failure, but I put that person in the wrong spot." I've got one that I won't mention a name, but this person still works here and is awesome, and I love the work that they do. Um, but hired that person for the wrong role, and I just wasn't really equipped at the time to ask the right questions. I had not articulated the role clearly enough. So about a week or two in, I sat down with him and said, "Hey, this is on me. It's not on you. We will pay you to leave." I said that in a nice way because I knew
Hmm.
that it was my responsibility. I think you would actually be really good at this other thing. But now that I know you, I poorly described what I needed from you and poorly understood what you had to bring to the equation. That person still works here today and is awesome and does an amazing job, does a different job than the one I hired them for. That was an example of me. I was young and green, and I just was like, I'll just go hire people who are hustlers, plug them in. I do value hustle, but hustle,
Yeah.
you have to have a skill set for a particular role. There have been a bunch of those times where I have looked up and said, man, like if I was 5 years older or more experienced, I wouldn't have done that. I guess you have to get I have a buddy who says you either the only thing better than learning from your mistakes is learning from someone else's mistakes, right? So what if I don't make the mistake, Heather makes the mistake, and I get the value of talking to you and you go, I have a regret. Here it is. That was one where somebody else gets to learn from my mistake, which is clearly articulate what you need in a role to a level that when someone says yes, they can do it, right? Or they know what to
Hmm.
expect. I didn't do a good job of that, but the
Mm.
I knew all the things to say, like the quotes from all the leadership books, and
Yes.
um, I I genuinely enjoy that stuff. So it consuming that content,
Mm.
I was blessed to like I had a lot of it in my brain, but putting it to into practice is a different thing. And I know that's
Mhm.
simple or it's almost basic to say, but there is a level of like, okay, is this true? Because someone wrote it down. The book sold a bajillion copies, we hit the Times list or whatever. But is it true in my world, in my space, that I have many years of like, oh, this is true, and this is old wisdom or ancient wisdom that is just
Mm.
describing human nature, whatever that example may be. And there is a lot of practical wisdom out there that you can glean from reading and listening to great experts and listening to podcasts and just not having to make some of the mistakes that others have made, right? When it comes to leadership.
Yes.
One of the biggest, this is the answer to the second part of your question, or the first part, I'm sorry, is I remember distinctly, it's been years now, but for the longest time I was in sales leadership. So I was leading our sales team, but I was still actively like working with our clients all day, every day. And I transitioned away from that to just running the company when I made that final step in leadership. And I remember a few months in waking up one morning thinking, oh man, like I don't, or asking myself, and not to be overconfident, I was good at this thing. I was good at leading the sales team and we had grown sales and all that stuff. And I remember waking up thinking, oh no, the skill set is different. Like being good at sales, leading other people is different than doing it yourself, right? And the visual that kind of came to mind for me is instead of me standing and facing a bunch of our clients and event partners, is I'm now facing 20 at the time less, but today 22 people explaining to them how we want to serve our clients. So I don't have my direct effect now is on the individuals in this building, leading them well, and then they're interacting with our clients. But day to day, I'm not. We put 2,000 events last year. I can't interact with 2,000 clients on a day to day basis. So that visual for me of me not standing like like I'm walking into the crowd of people. I'm facing our team, and they're the ones who are doing that engagement. That was instructive for me, challenging, because my next question is, oh no, like you had a skill set for one thing. Do you have this skill set? And the answer was I had a lot of it, but not all of it, and I had to go equip myself and get better. Yeah,
Oh, that's actually a really great visual and even just a good reframe for those who are listening now who could be just at that elevated place where they're just being moved into a either management or a new management role. And maybe it's above your director or senior director, with each level requires a different level of skill. And usually people think it's less, but it's more emotional intelligence when you get to that
mm,
higher level. Like you have to be able to really understand the environment, so like social intelligence, right? What's
yeah,
happening around you. So yeah, and when it's a small environment, you cannot hide. So with
that's
you
right.
being in that
Yeah,
smaller, and it's even 23, that's small. So everybody's paying attention, and it's um,
that's right.
what are they saying? What are they seeing? The other thing, I don't know if you found this, but especially being the leader of the smaller team, and to be honest, a smaller team of people who are already really good at leading themselves, that they're really good
Yeah.
at that way. But for you to um, give them permission to show up in certain ways because you do it for yourself. We talk about
Mm,
self leadership. It's the new kind of thing. People talk about this a lot. It's just one of the main
sure.
focuses I have. It's undercarrying leadership, self leadership, and I really do believe this is the year for it. Like we have just
Mm,
got to lean into owning our own outcomes and owning our own
right.
behaviors.
Yeah.
So, but what you're doing, they're watching you. Like this whole thing with Brian referring you in, right? They're watching. You had no clue he was going to say that. You don't. I mean, I didn't even get a chance to go in and be like, have the time to say what were the specific behaviors that make you see him that way. I haven't had that chance
Yeah.
to do that, right?
Right.
And for you to maybe go back and go back to him and say, like, what were the things? 'Cause I think that's
Yeah.
important. Number one, you can do more of it, and then if you go, well, if you had an opportunity to kind of, for anybody, if you had an opportunity to talk to him and say, but where, like, you may have said here and you think I'm a great leader, but like, where do areas do you see there are blind spots? And I think
Mm,
if more leaders did that kind of thing, they would be even more effective in their roles.
yeah. That's well said, Heather. I have definitely, I think I've shaken some of this, but I don't think this is unique to me. There is a temptation, especially as you ascend into leadership, and this isn't. I have, I'm now at the top of the org chart. If we have a flow chart, we're a very flat company in reality. But wherever you are in that thing, I mean, like I said earlier, everyone's leading something. My wife and I led a group at our church for the longest time when I was 25, 28 years old. So like, you're always in some amount of leadership. There is a temptation. I find myself, I fall victim to this, and I literally stop myself mentally and go, this is one of those times. Stop pretending. Where you think, okay, I'm the leader. It has to look like I know all the answers. It has to look like I have all the answers, and I don't have any questions about myself. I I don't like to follow people like that, if I'm honest. Like at the end of
Mhm.
the day, if someone feels too glossy and perfect, they're just not human and it doesn't feel real. So you can't really relate to those
Yes.
people. But there is a temptation. I personally, in moments, I mentioned you as we were chatting about before we started going live in COVID. I had a period of time where I was like, man, I have to pretend like I know all the answers. I wasn't doing it, wasn't maniacal or like trying to be sneaky. I just, in the moment, I thought I need to exude confidence and those types of things. It admitted early as like, hey, we're going to be fine. We're going to push through all this stuff. And I realized after a week or two, oh no, everyone needs right now Sean to be a human being and is scared. Beep, bleep that out.
Hmm.
Like I'm just terrified and there is going to be a path forward. But just because I'm at the top of the org chart, like, doesn't mean I don't have fears and concerns. And so I have to fight that temptation. And some of it's probably pride, if I'm honest, that like I want it to look like I have it all together. I have some of the answers, but a lot of the answers are around the conference table that we're sitting, everyone's in this room because you're smart people. Like, let's bring ideas and not I don't want to just pretend like I have all the answers. And that's a temptation that I have to remove myself from pretty often if I'm honest.
Oh, yeah, I talk a lot about listening. I feel like the role of listening, listening in the workplace, we're listening in our homes, listening and learning how to listen well. And I think that has a lot to do with why people might see you. I can just tell, right away, just based upon what you just talked about bringing people around the table. When we think about this concept of inclusion, for me, it really is about including more people's voices. So it's like seeking more involvement, seeking more buy-in, getting the intelligence that's inside their brains to come out at the table to help you solve the business challenges. That's what inclusion is. If you, so that's what makes people feel go like, oh, I like this leader. I like this place because they value my voice here and they think I'm
Yeah.
kind of smart and they ask my opinion here. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that it's a huge part of it.
Oh, I'm going to flip the script on you, Heather. I'm going to ask you a question. So, from a leader's perspective, there is that fear of if I ask these questions, like it's going to expose me as not having all the answers. How does a leader from the chair that you sit in, you're an expert in this, like how does that leader ask the questions without, feeling exposed or transparent?
Mm.
Oh no, I'm supposed to have the answers, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting. Was diving more into that during this like work on this self-leadership book, which by the way, here's what I find out when I write these books. I actually need them just as much as the people I'm writing them for. So right as I'm doing it, I'm going through my own therapy. I'm going through it's all a thing, right? I'm
Yeah.
learning my own lessons. I'm giving myself my own steps. And I think in this regard, we need to get out of our own way. We need to stop
Yeah.
taking ourselves so seriously. And the other thing is, you already said it, which is people relate to real people.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
It feels true.
the more we like put on our airs and put ourselves above other people, the less they relate to us, the less they listen to us, the less they follow us, like all the
Yeah.
things. So it's like if you want the outcomes, I'm not saying here's not what I'm not saying this. I call it selective vulnerability. What I'm not saying is for you to just sit around crying all day because something's not going well and that you're just like
Right.
you're down because the leader does have to kind of we have to smile to a certain extent. We do have to carry the troops into kind of the
Yeah.
battle that might be happening every day, which there's just so many
Sure.
different hills and valleys. So we still have to be those people, and at the same time, so again, this is a selective vulnerability part. We have to be able to show them, okay, I'm at a loss.
Hmm.
Like, I've been doing this. I've gone this route, this route, this route, and I'm at a loss.
Yeah.
And I think that you, 4 or 5, 10, whatever people are actually going to help me get out of this place of feeling a little stuck on the topic
Hmm.
because I know you're closer to the source.
Yeah.
So
It's
let's just
great.
talk about it on the table and then and ask questions and you lean in with curiosity. And now you come up with a solution. And again, now the team is fully rallying around you because while you might take that information and start to kind of, now you're elevating, now you're more confident, you're going like this, they're coming with you because they were part of that ability to elevate the business. So
Love it.
I don't think I think
Wish I had a
selective
pen.
vulnerability
I
is
would write
important.
that down.
Well,
I need to
well,
write that down. I'll just
well,
watch
the
the
good
podcast.
news, I was gonna say, watch the podcast, and the good news is that there's a little. You have your note taker on here, and I have my
Oh,
own
that's
little
right. Yeah,
AI
you're right.
companion, right? So I have a
That's good
feeling again.
stuff,
I have a
Heather.
feeling you're doing this just right. You're right. You're doing it just right.
Heather, one quick tidbit. I got great advice. It's been a decade or more ago. I was asking someone who's great at leading meetings, like, coach me up on that. And they asked me, when you have a question for your team, do you give your opinion first? And I said, I think I do because I'm a problem solver. So I think what I
Yep.
do is go, hey, here's what I think the solution is. What do you guys think, right? And he was like, you realize that since you sign paychecks, they're just
Yep.
going to pay it back to you. And I said, I'm
Yep.
embarrassed to say I didn't realize that. Like I was just, I hadn't thought that through. So I do, I intentionally, when there's a problem to solve, and that, we just described that
Mhm.
moment. I'm sitting here, there's a conference table to my left. At that table, I state the question and I actually make myself sit still because my default setting is to just like, let's solve a problem, which starts with me talking, not the right solution. But I realized, like, if my friend was right, he said, don't give your opinion because then you're going to hear a lot of versions of your opinion, right? Or some, not that people on
Yes.
disability are yes people, but everyone's default setting is my boss said this is true. Pushing back takes courage, right? So let
Yes.
people give their opinion first, and then if you agree, you disagree, but you're going to find a consensus. But anyway, that's something I learned. It's literally written in my journal. I can look on the date
Yes.
that someone told me, and it works. Yeah.
Yes, yep. The leaders speak last. I have somebody I learned. I didn't really think about that until I had somebody when I interviewed on the show. He ended up being in that Caring Leadership book, and he runs a small marketing agency, maybe as big as your company.
Hmm.
And he says the same thing. And he's the one who kind of taught me that. It was like, yeah, I don't. Yeah, I definitely speak last because I don't want to. I want to make sure I get the solutions I'm looking for, and I can't if I speak first. And I thought, dang it, that's so dang intelligent. And it says what you said, which is just going back to what you said, is the idea that I don't know it all.
Correct.
And
Yeah.
gosh, I don't know.
Leaders
Think if
leaders speak less. Yep.
if you think about like anybody who's listening, and even for you and I, Sean, like the folks that we were endeared towards, like we loved those leaders as we were growing up in our career. They were the ones who they had us. I'm discovering that they had this certain level of strength, and then they had this certain level of like humanity. Like there's a
Mm.
strength humanity balance where it's like I have a vision, I'm very clear, I'm on a mission. And at the same time, this vulnerability, this a little bit of a wobbliness that says, but I'm opening access for you to inform me past where I don't know something. And I feel like those people are the ones who just kind of invited us to be our best selves in that regard, right?
Agreed. I'm thinking of a person who I've told him, he lives in another state now, is the most impactful leader that I've ever worked for. I was 23 years old, and just the way he led, I had not experienced that before. Incredibly, a mixture of incredible self-confidence that didn't come across as arrogant. I mean, at all times you thought he is he is on my side, right? And I mean, he would point you
Mm,
aside if you did something wrong, like you would be told. But the self confidence part, and that's the first thing I recognized in him. And I said, I was thinking like what I want to, I want to
mm,
emulate this leadership style. And it wasn't self confidence from like, I'm really good at something. It was instead of self confidence, probably comfortableness. Like he was comfortable in who he was and didn't feel exposed in a moment of like, oh, I'm gonna communicate something emotionally to this person or be generous and kind. Like it wasn't a, will they see me as weak? It was just, I'm comfortable in who I am, who I've been created to be. And I'm just gonna let that flow with people that work for me, and that made such an impact on me. I saw him a year ago, pulled him aside, and just said, "Hey, just so you know," and I've got a couple of specific instances that I still go back to mentally and go, "I want to be the older person in this or the leader in this," because I remember what it did to me as a 23-year-old who was just trying to figure out life and what does it mean, and how I want to act, and how all those things.
mhm,
He did a couple of specific things that imprinted on me for the rest of my life. So pretty often I'll stop if there's a moment where I'm trying to figure out what's the vibe or what's this relationship, and go, oh, you want to be the mature person. You want to be like the mature, not mature. But you want to be the older person in this relationship right now that you
mhm,
got 20 years ago or 30 years ago. So yeah, comfortableness with yourself matters a lot, or it does to me.
mm,
I have to remind myself you don't have to be cool or clever or funny in this moment. Like vulnerable matters. People want to follow human beings, not robots.
Thank you for that. I love that. There's a little quote all by itself. So, what do you think your? I'm curious to know what you think your leadership superpowers are.
Superpowers, man, that's a tough question to answer. I'll base it off of the thing that I say the most, Heather, which is gratitude is a skill. I don't remember where I heard that. I read a bunch of studies years ago, and there were some great books out there about leading from a place of gratitude and generosity, and from a perspective of these people are. I had 22 teammates here who were giving me 8 hours of their day every day. Now we're compensating them very well for it, but at the end of the day, like approaching, starting from a leading myself out of gratitude. I mean, I wake up every morning, I have a gratitude list on my phone. I used to do a journal. I know I'm not supposed to keep my phone next to my bed, so you people tell me that in the chat. But starting from gratitude, and I'm just basing. I'm gonna anchor this whole thing to gratitude. I just try to start from a place of thank you for your work, even if it's someone's made a mistake. I go, hey, thank you for your work. You didn't mess this up on purpose. Let's fix it. I feel like that has given me entree with people where they know my starting position is thank you, right? Like a
Mhm.
place of gratitude. So I say gratitude is a skill. I say that internally often. It's great customer service, by the way, also, but specific to leadership, gratitude is a skill because skills take work. And I've got to
Mm.
show up every day and go, okay, I want to lead from a place of gratitude. It's not a soft thing. I mean, there are still times when you have to, like sit people down and tell them things they don't want to hear. Like it's not a everything is roses, but for me, it's a mindset. It might be personal to me of starting with a generous, grateful heart and perspective, and leading from that place. That's probably my, if I had to call it a superpower. I also love to laugh. I will use humor often to disarm a situation, to break the awkwardness of, hey, you're not going to like this conversation, and not to be inappropriate in a time when it needs to be a heavier conversation. But I have found humor over the years to be a superpower. My wife would say, that's not your superpower. You're just a smart ass, Sean. But I have found humor just when people get to chuckle a little bit, it opens a lot of like personal avenues that could be blocked just because they don't know, like, how do I
Mhm.
relate to you? And I would say most
Mhm.
people in this building know at some point we're gonna have a laugh about this. And it might be in this moment, or it may be like, hey, this is a problem. We gotta fix it. Tomorrow we're probably going to make a joke about this, but maybe not today, but there will be humor involved. So that's a long answer. I think those two
Mm.
things, if I had to say, I'm attaching this whole ship to a couple of things. Those are the two wins that are in my cells: gratitude and
Very
humor,
nice.
probably. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I think about, well, there's a whole bunch of stats out there related to like, let's say approximately 70% of the people said they would leave a workplace for one that values them. And so that idea of like being the leader who's showing recognition. And there's also stats out there related to the fact that most people do not remember being appreciated or being shown appreciation if it hasn't been done in the last 7 days, which is kind of crazy. It's a little bit off the rocker if you think about all those that just spend all day thinking about how to recognize people. But if you already
Right.
are a leader who has as your North Star this gratitude idea, then it really, you're on to something just naturally, because that's what
Right.
people are looking for at work. So that would be why most of your people are staying around a long time, because they're around a leader who starts off with gratitude and also shows gratitude. And I think, again, the humor part is part of it, where it's like you're not taking yourself too seriously. And there was another thing
Yeah.
that you did not say, but I did hear, and it was this concept of grace. So you said
Mm,
something like, "This is a problem. This is a problem, and that's all right. There's a reason why it
yeah.
happened, but let's solve it together." Which says like there's this partnership, but there's grace that enters into it, and maybe that stems from the gratitude. I don't know. Sorry, this is just how I go. I start to
Probably.
get super curious. So the
Yeah.
grace
Yeah.
says like I'm going to assume that you have imperfections like I do, and that you're
Yeah.
not going to do the exact right thing every single time. So let's
Right.
just go solve that together. We know we got to fix it. And so you're
Yeah.
not coming down hard on the person, making them feel like a little speck on the ground.
Right.
And I talk
Yeah.
about that a lot. I'm like, well, do you feel like you're like this cog on a wheel, this like small, inconsequential thing? And in this
Hmm.
case, where you just talked about that specifically, it still says we're partnering towards the outcomes we are looking for. It
Hmm.
says that versus you are a means to my end.
Yeah, that feels very clinical and cold. You're a
Hmm.
means to my end. Yeah, yeah. Well, that's
Anyhow, it
that.
goes.
Thank you for describing that. Grace is. I'm a person of faith, and I mean, I personally believe I am the benefactor. No, I am the recipient of so much grace. It's indescribable from my worldview. So I think that would just naturally emanate from me. I mean, it would be
Hmm.
what a hypocritical thing to. I get all the grace and I don't give it out. Like, of course, yeah. My starting point is, man, I need it more than anyone else, right?
Well, and the other thing is this: we are whole people, and so I think it is. I'm excited to see more and more people bringing like all parts of their intern, like their personal side stuff with their home, who they are, because it's so much. I do feel like actually in the last 5 years, it got harder to do that just from the political context. It got
Right.
harder to say who we were,
Right.
and so. Whenever I see somebody who's willing to be like, yep, and I'm a person of faith, or whatever it is, I do this thing, and it's like, great, like bring that to the conversation too.
Yeah.
right? Bring it because that's
Agreed,
how I
Heather.
can see you. I can
Right.
see you that
Yeah.
way.
Don't bring half of yourself or have to pretend like you're something that you're not, right? Like, and that's not
Hmm.
fair to ask someone else to conform themselves to what I want them to be. I mean, ultimately, like, yeah, bring your whole self, and we
Hmm.
all benefit from that, right? Yeah.
I think so. So for the people who are listening now, they could be they're all different. They're from they're entrepreneurs, they're part of bigger companies, they're at supervisor level, they're at the executive level, they're owners. Okay, but if they might be at a place where they're just at a crossroads, maybe in their leadership, maybe they're just they're looking to make a decision,
Mm.
they're facing big change, which most of us are. What might be a couple pearls of wisdom you would leave them with for today?
Oh my goodness. I'll tell you one that has been personally useful for me, and I have a good friend Luke who teaches a whole process on journaling, and that's fairly. I've journaled for most of my adult life. That was taught to me as a teenager. I'm super grateful that it was. I didn't really realize I benefited. I got all the value out of it without knowing the science behind it. And then I've since learned the science behind it. I'm like, of course it works that way. But you just a lot of things you just do and you don't know why it works. It just works, right? Um, I have found for me, journaling is such a powerful way to communicate with yourself in the future, right? I mean, I forget today is Thursday. We happen to be recording this on a Thursday. If you ask me what lessons I learned on Monday, I don't know that I could tell you, like off the top of my head. But man, I can flip back in my journal and go, oh, this is what I dealt with. Okay. And some of it's perspective of looking, okay, that was the problem. Here's the solution we landed on. I have found that to be way more useful years later, right? Like, so
Mhm.
2015, what were we working on? It does give me a bit of larger perspective, especially from a leadership level, because you look at the problems you were solving, some of them feel very familiar. And you have to go, wait, maybe if the same problem occurs daily, I'm the common denominator. So some of it's self-reflective, some of it is just gives you perspective on, oh wow, we've come a long ways as a company, as a group of people and teammates. But that, and there are 100 different ways I could unpack that. But journaling in a very practical way has been a very useful way for me to communicate with my future self. Uh,
Mm.
and honestly, grace, I'll use that word again. Thanks for pointing that out. It makes me be more, I give myself more grace in the past that I'll read it and be like, man, I was wrestling with some hard stuff. But if it was today, I wouldn't give myself that grace. I need some distance, right? But it helps me to see the people around me as well, because then I look through and go, oh, that we were wrestling with that problem. Here was the outcome for us. And that thing is a very practical
Hmm.
practice that might be redundant. It's a very effective practice for me. And I try to do it daily. I'm not going to be a hypocrite and say that I do it. I go in cycles where I'll intentionally, journal for 10, 15, 20 minutes a day for a while. And then I'll get lazy and I'll do it a couple times a week. But
Hmm.
over the body of work for 30 years at this point, that's been a really valuable tool for me. This sounds cliche, but there's so much great content. Heather, you're a big part of producing this. Back to the learn from experts. I mean, there's so much access to content. We may be in the problem may be finding the best source of it, right? Like, I mean, Google leadership expert or whatever it might be on YouTube. There's too much stuff out there, but finding a couple of people that you go, this person resonates with me. I like their approach to leadership, and I'm gonna like really go deep, read their body of work out there, understand like the style, and then just kind of make it your own, because there are no two people exactly alike.
Hmm.
But at the end of the day, I heard of a great speaker say one time, and I always get this backwards, like, you are uniquely, in his case, created, or you're a unique individual. Your circumstances are very likely not unique. I mean, at the end of the day,
Hmm.
humans have been around for a long time. So there has been a version of that problem solved before. Go find that solution so you can learn from that other person. So seeking out great content, consuming it intentionally daily. For me, that also involves journaling, writing down what I learned when I read
Hmm.
that thing. Um, Over time, that whole you can get 1% better a day or whatever the math says, becoming better leader is just like becoming stronger or faster or losing weight, whatever analogy or example you want to use. Like it's a slow haul, but man, it's super rewarding when you meet a better version of yourself a year from now and go, I'm glad I started that journey, right?
So, so good. So we think we got gratitude, we've got grace, we've got continuous learning. We've got humility. There's a level of confidence there and leaning on the team. I think those are some of the
Mm.
things that just went right into
Oh,
my
yeah.
head as I spoke to you. So I think that's is critical. I really appreciate you coming on, and I am so glad that Brian kind of put you to the top of the stack for me in my head, and that we can
Yeah.
highlight you. And yeah, I
What a
appreciate you
sweet
being on
guy.
here. Yeah,
Yeah.
he really
Heather, thanks
is.
for this opportunity. Super grateful for it. Appreciate what you bring to our industry. Yeah, and he's brought that for a long time. So thanks for being a positive light, being a positive role model and leader in the speaking space. Yeah, been great.
Thank you. Thanks everybody too for listening to the Leadership with Heart podcast.